This is the Haiti We Know, a Healing Haiti podcast. Episode 1, Ministry of Presence, with Bryan McInnis and Michael Stoebner.
Yeah, so we don't talk a lot about the history of Cité Soleil I didn't know anything about it when I went on my first trip in 2016. But my understanding is that it was this community that was built for sugar plantation or sugar factory workers, kind of like day laborers. And then little by little, more and more people from the countryside came into the area to find work. And then in the 80s, there was an African swine flu outbreak, and pigs all throughout Haiti were killed to mitigate the spread of that swine flu. And so it forced all of these farmers whose livelihoods depended on breeding pigs out of the countryside and into this place that was sort of a hub for people looking for work. And just over time, that community grew, and there were some political things that happened that caused it to accelerate growth even more. And now it's this community of anywhere between, I've heard, 300,000 and 400,000 people.
Yeah.
Who live just within several square miles.
So 3 square miles, right?
Yeah,
is the
densely populated.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is when you're there during the day, it doesn't seem like there could be that many people that live there, right?
Okay, so that's a tip of the hand of where the story's going.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But it's right on the coast of the Caribbean. And there is this stark sort of contrast between the blues and sort of the picturesque scene that you sort of imagine when you think of the Caribbean, and then with the raw sort of reality of a community that has absolutely no infrastructure, right? No electricity, no running water, no sewage systems at all. And so everything's just out in the open. The electricity that people have is sort of, hijacked off the national grid, which is totally unreliable to begin with.
Yeah. Like an hour a day of electricity.
Yeah.
In general.
In general. Yeah. So there's some generators, some solar, little makeshift solar setups. And then water, the only way to get water is to purchase it, which it can be really expensive for people, or to get it from us.
Yeah, so those who haven't been on a trip, since it's built on the bay, that if you were going to drill water for a well, you would just hit salt water. So it would all be contaminated. Years ago, they tried to put in cisterns. They just got shot up, elevated cisterns. They also tried to pipe water in, and everybody just broke into the pipes to get their water before it got really into central Cité Soleil. Yeah. So it didn't work. So they sell water. They have, 20 or 25 cement cask. So built into the ground where the water truck comes in and fills it up with, 100 gallons of water. And then somebody's job is to sit there outside that cistern and just put the clean bucket in and fill up your dirty bucket and charge. The last I heard, it was 50 cents a bucket of water. Yeah. But then when your average daily income in Cité Soleil is under $1 for a family, right? Family makes under $1. To spend half of that dollar on one 5-gallon pail of water that's unsustainable.
Yeah.
So we started to deliver water, free water. So we, on average, when we were at the height of the water truck, when we could get into Cité Soleil every day, 6 days a week, except for Sunday, it's 3.2 million gallons of water a year of fresh, chlorinated water, safe water.
Mm-hmm.
So people used it for cooking. They used it for their laundry, and they used it to drink. Mm-hmm. Talk about alleviating a burden.
Yeah.
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
And for anybody who's seen it, and people line up for this water, it becomes more of a circus when missionaries are there to help, because we, number one, make it more fun, and number two, make it more chaotic.
Right.
We really take the wheels come off the wagon, because it just...
Yeah, when it's just our Haitian staff delivering water, it's systematic, and they probably get out a lot quicker, but
it is very quiet, super dull. Yes. But very efficient.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's just been, that has raised the level of health in Cité Soleil, since 2006. That has been a godsend. Mm-hmm. That there, you don't, it sounds like you're just, throwing numbers out and trying to make something bigger than it is. Yeah. But people are alive because of that water.
Yeah. Well, and cholera is a huge issue in Cité Soleil, typically.
Yep. And it is.
Which is a waterborne illness for people who don't know what cholera is.
Let's talk a little bit about living in Cité Soleil then. Again, a lot of people have been there that may be listening. But not everybody gets to go inside a house and really see what it's like. So what was your first experience?
Yeah, well, I think crossing into Cité Soleil is always, when you're in Cité Soleil, it's demarcated enough from the rest of, even by its poverty, from the rest of Port-au-Prince. So you're crossing over a lot of typically standing water. And that standing water is sewage mixed with rainfall, flooding, if it's hurricane season. A lot of the homes are either cement or tarp or corrugated tin. Most of the roofs are that corrugated tin. A lot of the roofs that I saw had holes in them, were rusted. You think about the salt in the air, the salt water mixed with the metal, just not a recipe for longevity of materials. And when we were there, I think the first time I was there with you, there was this pride that you talked about earlier, where people want their photos taken in front of their homes. And so, you kind of, you see that and you're like, wow, there is this pride of ownership, of this is a home. I've made this place a home. And that's remarkable from my vantage point, You wonder where people get their food, because there's no agriculture within Cité Soleil, so completely dependent on stuff, food coming in from the outside, which makes right now a really dire situation for Cité Soleil, because we can't get food into the communities regularly. You just wonder how is it possible for people to live day in and day out in these conditions, because they're so different from what you're used to, what your normal is.
I've wondered that for years.
Yeah.
How does this work?
Yeah.
It seems I'm seeing it, but am I seeing the real Cité Soleil? I don't understand how this works. And talk about pride. When you go in, almost every single house I've gone into in Cité Soleil, which has been hundreds, are orderly and clean.
Yeah.
Like there's no You think of slum and shanty and all those words that carry this weight of heaviness, of bad, of dirty, and it's not that. It's sparse.
Yeah.
There's no bed, but it's not dirty and trash, like just built up, like they don't care.
Yeah.
There's huge pride in those houses.
People sweeping their front, the entrance into their homes, and you're like, wow, these people care about the little that they have. It matters to them.
Yeah, and that's not to, sometimes you can Pollyanna an area and say, oh, it's so beautiful in its simplicity. And that's not what I'm saying.
No, because there's a running sewer right next to that entrance into the house. And
I'm just saying that they're doing everything they can to make this the best thing they can, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
That there's that resilience and strength of character to say, I'm going to make this the best I can in this situation. It's still a really hard place.
Yeah.
And they would get out of there if they could.
Yeah. The other thing that strikes me about sort of daily life in Cité Soleil is, well, two things. One is you come in on these roads, and like I said before, you wonder where all the people are, and then you see these little sort of corollaries off the beaten path, and it's an entire like neighborhood, and just carrying water for people. When we take people in to do water truck, we're pretty firm that they have to be able to see the truck at all times, but even with that in mind, you do get taken off the beaten path, and you're like, wow, it's kind of like everything kind of opens up into this new sort of vein of homes that you didn't even see and first pass, and and it's just like people are making a home wherever they can. Yeah.
So, all right. So story time.
Okay.
So for years we'd just been saying, how does this work? How does it work to live in Cité Soleil? What does Cité Soleil look like at night? And that was part of this. I mean, I've wondered that for years, and I know that goers have often wondered, how does this look at night? Like it's, and this is, I don't even know the year now, 4 years ago, probably. We were there, a medical team. So we're there for a medical mission, and talking with the doctors, and we were talking about how do women have babies in Cité Soleil. That was a question actually our Haitian doctors had too. They weren't exactly sure what the process was. Like, how do you have a baby in a shanty with no power, with no water, and a dirt floor? But there in Cité Soleil, there's a group of midwives. They call them matrons, and there's 12 of them, and a lot of you have probably met them, and I've carried water with almost all of them over the years. Just regular people in the neighborhood that their job is to help deliver babies. So we got together and we had this meeting and discussed how many kids are born. And I said, gosh, I'd really love to experience that and just see how this happens. Yeah. And they all said, like, oh yeah, there's a baby going to be born tonight. There's a baby going to be born in the morning, and there's a baby going to be born tomorrow. There's like a lot of babies. Yeah. And so we discussed it with some people that were on the trip, and decided that I would just stay in Cité Soleil that night with these midwives and be there for a birth. I was super excited, right? Yeah. Like I've been wondering, like, I just need to know how life works here.
So where did you stay?
So the plan was I was going to stay in the clinic.
Okay.
That night I was going to sleep in the clinic waiting room, or the conference room, the office. It's a little room. But as soon as that decision was made, I think everybody in Cité Soleil knew I was staying overnight. Like, the word spread really fast. So I went and met the woman who was in labor, but labor was going to be a while yet. It was not going to happen that night. But at this time now, it was that evening, and so our Haitian staff and our church elders that all live in the area around 17 decided, oh, we'll just walk around. Let's take Michael around Cité Soleil tonight and just walk all over the place. And I'm, of course, in on that. This is because what does this look like at night? Well, here's what it looks like at night. So when normally you can drive through the streets with a tap and you kind of wangle through a little bit, but they're pretty open. Nope. Cité Soleil at night looks like the Minnesota State Fair. It's just people everywhere. The streets are packed with people.
Like what are we talking, like 7 at night or 11 at night?
Like
or
9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Yeah. And so everybody, people have little stands they bring out and whatever they've able to grab, during the day that they can resell. So they make these little resale stands. So everybody has a little resale stand. And there's no power. There's some solar streetlights, but there's no power inside their homes. And it's hot. There's no windows. So nobody's inside. So everybody's outside, including the kids are doing homework outside by the little stands with the little tiny little candles there. And there's, 3 or 4 kids huddled together doing homework over this like 1-inch candle that's there. And then, there's trash that's on fire for light. So they, that's how they get rid of trash in this area is that you need to burn it.
Yeah.
Because there's no place to put it.
Yeah.
So you burn it for light, and then little oil stoves and stuff that are going. So there we are, me and this group of people, and just like group of guys that most of you know, who've been there, and we're just walking around, sauntering around, and honestly, nobody gave me a second look. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Nobody hardly even looked at me, because I wasn't a team, so the fun part wasn't there. Like the team,
but you're
the
clearly
chaos.
White.
Yeah, I mean, people knew I didn't belong there at 9 o'clock at night, but yet nobody made a deal about it. I just was part of the neighborhood. So we walked from 17 all the way to 26. We went all the way to the pier at night. Really beautiful at night because Port-au-Prince is all lit up and the mountains all lit up and there I am that a lot of people have been at the pier and just amazing.
Wow.
I mean, I never felt scared, just because it was this kind of just neighborhood feeling. Everybody was just doing their neighborhood thing, like you would anywhere.
Yeah.
But then we're walking down this road and somebody came up from behind me and grabbed me from behind and shook me. And I'm walking around. I have my camera with me too, but it's in my hand. I'm not taking photos. I took a couple photos, but I had it with me just in case.
Yeah.
I needed it. Shook me and spun me around and started to yell at me in Creole. And I don't know that much Creole, so I was like, something's good, but I don't know what it is. And so Alex, those of you who've known Alex was there. Great English, quite a kid, translates, and he said, he's yelling at me, "This is so good. This is so good." And he's pointing at me. "This is so good. You're not afraid of us." And just like, talk about thunderstruck in the moment. It just all came crashing in at me that, this is, what's it like to be born in an area and forever think that people are afraid of you your entire life. Like the entire world is either thinks you're a criminal, a gang member, you're to be feared. Like, what does that do to your psyche? What does that do to your self-confidence? And then what does it do to have somebody come in in the middle of the night
Yeah.
and just walk around and say, I'm not afraid. Of course I'm not afraid of you.
Yeah.
What? Why would you say that? It just seems so strange for him to say it. But sometimes that's what we're called to do, to be bold. It's one thing to say, I'm not afraid of you. It's one thing to prove it.
Yeah. Well, and that's, that's sort of a microcosm of most people's disposition toward Haiti to begin with is, well, all that ever happens in Haiti is tragedy and, and they can't get their stuff together. And of course there's a history of involvement, whether it's by the U.S. or the French or whatever, that hasn't necessarily set up Haiti for success, but that's probably another podcast episode. But
yeah.
But to have that stigma, right, every day, knowing that the world is looking at you as the problem or whatever, and to have someone look you in the eye and say, I believe in you. I'm here I'm with you. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to why carry a bucket of water for someone? Yeah. Well, it's that you're with them,
Thousands of people have done that exact thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They've all proven by coming on a trip and carrying water, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Not afraid of you. I view you differently. Your poverty does not define you.
Yeah.
Cité Soleil does not define you. I think it's amazing to travel and come and carry a bucket just for that purpose.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
The theological sort of term is ministry of presence, right? It's the ministry that you're doing for someone else is just being present with them. You're not giving them anything. You're not giving them money. You're not whatever, You're not necessarily bettering their situation. The theological sort of term is ministry of presence, right? The ministry that you're doing for someone else is just being present with them. And that's why I think on a water truck stop, the people carrying water aren't any more effective than the people holding a kid, because it's the same thing. It's that presence, being present for someone, with someone.
100%.
Yeah.
To learn more about the ongoing work of Healing Haiti in places like Cité Soleil, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, or visit us at healinghaiti.org.